Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg, and this is Teddy, my new dog, who is becoming a mainstay of Friday Reads. I feel like he's been in the last two. This will be the third that I'm doing with Teddy, and it feels like I've made a terrible mistake because now people really want him in every Friday Reads, and I can't guarantee that he will be in every single one, but I will try to get him with me for as many as I possibly can, because of course I enjoy spending time with him anyway. You're a cute boy. Do you know that? He's looking out the front window very intently. I don't know what he sees, but there must be something. So I finished 2 books this week. I will have a timestamp in the description box down below if you would like to jump to the Friday Reads portion of this video. I did want to take a moment to mention, well, let me start with the Teddy update, actually. He's been doing really great since he had the tooth removed. He's pretty much back to normal. We are trying to be careful about giving him like hard treats until he has his follow-up with the vet next week. But he is doing really great, and I think he is over me and wants to go down already. So I'm going to let him down, and we'll keep going. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention is Book Award stuff, because we have a lot coming up. The National Book Award winners will be announced on November 15th. I have my little cheat sheet right here, which is coming up next week. I can't remember if it's Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm going to quickly look at the calendar. It is Wednesday. So hopefully I will be able to film a reaction to that on Wednesday, edit it, and post it. It's a little difficult when... they usually announce it later in the day because they do a dinner. So Joel is going to be traveling next week. So I might be able to film a reaction in the evening if need be and post it that way. But by Thursday, you'll have my reaction. I'm still thinking that Justin Torres is going to win the National Book Award this year for Blackouts. If you have an opinion about what you think is going to win, let me know in the comment section down below. But so that's coming next week. And I also have been wanting to talk about the long list for the Carnegie Medal. The Carnegie Medal is done by the ALA, and it's a pretty good bellwether for good books. And they always find some really interesting titles. So I've wanted to do a video where I sort of run through all of them, and the timing has just gotten away from me because there has been so much. I did my To Kill a Mockingbird deep dive. I actually just filmed my Interpreter of Maladies deep dive yesterday as I'm filming this. I'm actually filming this on Friday because I wanted to give myself a little extra time to finish a book today. So then you'll see this on Saturday. So my Interpreter of Maladies post is going to be on Monday. Point just being, there's been so much going on in the month of November, and we started getting our best of lists. I did a video about Publishers Weekly's best books of 2023. That will be down below if you'd like to check it out. So I never got to a specific video about the Carnegie Medal. So I am going to run through the long list really quickly and just tell you what's on it. Because at this point, they are actually going to be announcing the shortlist on November 14th, which should be Tuesday, since, the National Book Awards are on the 15th, and that's Wednesday. So only 3 of these books will make the shortlist, and then the winner will actually be announced in January. So here is what is on the long list for the Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence in Fiction. There is a nonfiction category. I'll put a link to this down below if you'd like to check it out. I'm only going to take the time to discuss the fiction, and we'll go from there. So Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah is on the list. That book really seems to be defying any expectation for a genre book and year-end best lists. It's also shortlisted for the National Book Award, and we'll have to see if it makes it onto any more lists. There's also Fat Time and Other Stories by Jeffrey Renard Allen. There's also Prophet by Sin Blaché and Helen MacDonald. Witness by Jamel Brinkley. Straw Dogs of the Universe by Ya Chun. All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. Two Sherpas by Sebastian Martinez Daniel, translated by Jennifer Croft. The Lost Journals of Sacagawea by Deborah Magpie Erling. The Great Reclamation by Rachel Heng. Tall Girls by Siamak Harawi, translated by Sarah Khalil. The Water Outlaws by S.L. Huang. Denison Avenue by Daniel Innes and Christina Wong. The Maniac by Benjamin Labatut. I've been hearing a lot of really good things about that one lately. Pomegranate by Helen Elaine Lee. House Gone Quiet by Kelsey Norris. The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. Another book I've been hearing a lot about lately because I think it just came out. Wandering Souls by Cecily Penn, a book I love. Let's Go by Cleo Kian. The Bandit Queens by Perini Schroff, another book I really liked. Dear Chrysanthemums, a novel in stories by Fiona Say Lorraine, and Jespen Ward's Let Us Descend. And again, it feels like Let Us Descend is really making its presence felt coming late in the year. It has already been appearing on a lot of best of lists. I suspect we're going to be seeing a lot more of that as the season goes on. Definitely a Pulitzer contender. I think Witness by Jamel Brinkley is definitely a Pulitzer contender. I actually, spoiler for when we get to my discussion of what's next, I might be reading it. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff on this list. The Lost Journals of Sacagawea is a book that I also, spoiler alert for my book haul for November, which is going to be massive, by the way. I got a copy of that as well because Chelsea from Montana Book Company is a big fan of that book. And she had told me about it and recommended it to me. So I was interested in it already. And then when I saw it on this list, I just said, all right, ring me up and mail me a copy, and it's here. So really interesting list. I will have a link down below so you can check out the nonfiction list or just the full list and spend a little more time with it. I'm sorry I didn't manage to get a full video of this done. There's just a lot going on at this time of year. And we have the Booker Prize coming on November 26th. Now, I did not realize this, but November 26th is a Sunday. And that is going to throw me for a loop because that's the Sunday after Thanksgiving in the United States. I'm going to be doing other things. So I will probably not watch. Maybe I'll be able to watch, but I'm definitely not going to be able to do a video until Monday. So I won't be getting an instant response to the Booker Prize out, and that's just going to be the way it is. So we have a lot of exciting things coming. I have been checking for the New York Times 100 notable books every single day because I am just waiting for it to come out. So there's just so much going on. I haven't even done a book haul revisit for November yet, and the month is just packed with video ideas. But that's something that's kind of exciting about this time of year. I can't really complain about that. Trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to talk about before I pivot to the Friday reads. I think that really kind of covers it. Joel and I did our monthly wrap-up earlier in the week as well, so I'll have my Publishers Weekly video about their best books of the year and that down below with some other things that you can check out. Let's move into the actual Friday reads portion of this video. And first, we'll talk about the 2 books that I finished, and then we'll talk about what might be up next because... well, I started one book, and I haven't decided. I just finished The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff like an hour ago. But we're going to start with the first book that I finished this week, which is Maurice by E.M. Forster. Or if you're in the UK, it's pronounced Maurice. Just, the way things are. This is a book that I frequently refer to as possibly my favorite. I have a very hard time picking a favorite book because... Catcher in the Rye really meant a lot to me when I was a teenager. Maurice really meant a lot to me when I was in my 20s. And I don't have a book that meets those right now. So I kind of default back to the 2 books that have really meant something to me at previous points in my life. And I still really liked Maurice a lot, reading it for the second time now. But it definitely did not have the same sense of urgency that it had when I read it for the first time. And that really, it just comes down to the fact that it meant something to me personally at the time, and there's no way circumstances could sort of match that right now. So the first time I read this book, I was thinking of coming out of the closet and was sort of tiptoeing in that direction. And I can sometimes be the type of person who likes to do a bit of research before doing something. So when I was getting ready to come out, I wanted to read classic LGBTQ plus literature, and I turned to, I think, The City and the Pillar was the first one I picked up, and that's when I learned that classic gay literature is really depressing, and that was all that you really had at the time. So I was thinking of coming out, but all of these books were just depressing and awful. Giovanni's Room was another one, and it was... one of my big concerns about coming out was that I felt like if I come out, I'm never going to be able to have a family. I'll never be able to get married. What is it going to mean for my life? Enter Maurice by E.M. Forster, which was only able to be published after E.M. Forster died because he, unlike a lot of other people at the time, did not want to compromise and punish Maurice for being gay, which is essentially what you had to do in order to get a book with a gay theme published. If you wrote a book about adultery, the adultery had to be punished by the end of the book. So if you wrote a book about a homosexual character, they had to be punished by the end. So he did not want to do that. Therefore, the book could not be published until after his death. I believe E.M. Forster died in 1970, and therefore Maurice was published in 1971. And it's a book in many ways similar to other E.M. Forster books, where it is about someone who is caught between the expectations of society and their heart's own desires. You see this in A Room with a View, for sure. Howard's End to a degree, but A Room with a View is probably the best example of that. And in this case, it's a man, not a female character, like you would find in Howard's End or A Room with a View. And Maurice goes to college. He knows what society expects of him. He ends up falling in love with a man at college, and they have something of a secret relationship, although it's probably not as secret as they would intend to be. If it was in the current time, I think at the time that they were living, people didn't look for evidence of homosexuality as they might now. So they have this a very intense friendship, which is what all that other people know about it. And then that relationship ends, and Maurice, that's about halfway through the book. And then Maurice has to decide what to do with his life, and he struggles against his homosexuality, but ultimately E.M. Forster gives him something of a happy ending. It's not a great ending because, the restrictions of the time don't allow it to be just a happy ending. That would be completely unrealistic. But there is acceptance and determination and resilience in this book, and it was everything that I needed at that point in my life where I was really thinking about coming out, because again, I was really concerned about whether or not I was ever going to be able to be married and have a family and any of that stuff. And Teddy's back. But so it can't match the atmosphere of that first read, because this was everything that my heart needed as I was getting ready to take that step and come out of the closet myself, because it let me know things will be okay. Not all the time. You will have to make compromises. There will be things that will be different about your life, but you can live an authentic and honest life, and you can be happy with what you have. So this is the book that gave me the courage to do that, and I will always be really grateful to that. And again, I read it now. I still really liked it, but it doesn't have all of that emotional power over me as it did the first time, because here I am. I'm trying to remember when I read this for the first time. I think I read it for the first time in 2008. So here I am in 2023. I am married. I've had a foster son. So I've built a family for myself, and I have been married. So a lot of the things that I was afraid of that Maurice told me to take a chance on have been realized. So it doesn't have the same emotional resonance. However, it is still a book that I really love. I will always appreciate that what it gave to me at that time. And this was not the final book for the E.M. Forster read-along for this year. Next month, I think, is biography. I'd have to check. Don't quote me on that. But it's the final novel of E.M. Forster. I might try to go back and read Howard's End, because I missed that one in the reread section. I think I'm going to let Passage to India go, because I didn't reread that, and I had previously not liked that book. So the E.M. Forster read-along kind of comes to an end. There is one more month. I might, instead of doing... actually, let me just pull it up so I can tell you exactly and not just speculate on what is going on next month. So December is movie adaptations. So I could watch the movie version of Maurice. There is a movie version of A Passage to India. I watched A Room with a View for the June movie adaptations. So I'll probably watch something. I might try to catch up to one of the books that I had missed, but largely this is the end. There will be information about the E.M. Forster read-along down below if you'd like to check that out. But it's been fun revisiting these books that I had liked, and I wish that I had managed to fit in Howard's End, but it's been an interesting year for anything. It's been a tough year. But I'm glad that I got this one in, and I did love it a great deal. It just didn't have that same power that it did the first time, which is, it's fair. The second book that I finished this week was The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. I was really looking forward to reading this because you can see, since it's faced out on my shelf, I'm a huge fan of Matrix by Lauren Groff, which is the only Lauren Groff book that I have read so far. I have a copy of Fates and Furies next to it that I have not read because it's been very cilantro Some people love it, some people really don't. So I have not gotten around to Fates and Furies. I will someday. But The Vaster Wilds is sort of thematically linked to Matrix, so I went here next instead of going back to Fates and Furies. So it's not a strict sequel. Lauren Groff is sort of thinking of a thematic trilogy of books moving in time. So I believe Matrix is set in the 1200s. Vaster Wilds, I believe, is the 1600s. It doesn't say, it's just colonial settlement in the United States. And then I think the next one will jump another 400 years to more like the present day. And it's about, so Matrix is a book about a woman who is sort of exiled from her home and becomes a girl boss lesbian nun, which is absolutely wonderful and delightful. If you haven't read Matrix, I mean, girl boss lesbian nun, do it. So in this one, you have a woman, a young girl who I believe is about 16, who runs away from the settlement where she is staying, and she runs into the woods, and it is about her survival, and it is also about, in little bursts and details throughout the book, she sort of goes back and you start to figure out what she is running from, why she is running, and things like that. I did like this book a lot, not at the level of Matrix, and actually I think a big part of that is that I listened to this on audio. So as we're coming to the end of the year, I'm in a crunch trying to fit some things in that I really wanted to read before my reading went into a tailspin after we lost my dog Jamie at the end of August. And even though I have the physical copy of The Vaster Wilds, I decided to do it on audio just to make sure I finished it by the end of the year. And I confess, under typical circumstances, I actually would have put the audio to the side and waited until I had free time for a physical book, so I could have picked it up that way. The only reason I continued with the audio is that, again, I want to read this book by the end of the year. So I kind of, in a silly way, put pressure on myself to have the book done and sort of sacrifice my experience of the book for that, because I was reading Maurice in print. I have a library book that I need to read in return, so I'm working on that one. And then I really want to read The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, which is also going to come up in print, because I think the audio didn't help me for Deacon King Kong because there are so many different storylines in it. So I decided I want to read that one in print. So I felt like I wanted to get this one in, and if I tried to get the physical book in, it was going to be difficult because of all the other things I have on my plate with physical books at the moment. But I didn't like the audio. And it comes down to the narration. I just really wasn't responding to the narration at all. And I think I would have liked the book a lot more if I had spent time with the book. And actually, I spoke with Essie at Montana Book Company yesterday. Essie has very similar taste to me in books and is just a delight. If you call the store, odds are you'll probably end up talking to Essie, because she's usually the one who answers the phone. That's neither here nor there. She's just a great book person. And we were talking on the phone yesterday, and she asked what I was reading, and I mentioned that I was finishing the audio of this, and that I had been thinking that I would have be liking it a lot more if I had switched to the book. And she actually said the same thing. She started listening to it on audio, wasn't quite getting along with the audio, so she put it down, picked up the physical book, and she ended up loving it every bit as much as Matrix. So for me, I ended up really liking the book, but not as much as Matrix. I didn't have that sort of transformative experience that you get when you just read a book that you absolutely love, which I did get when I read Matrix. And I think that comes down to the narration. So I did really like the book, but I think the audiobook hindered my experience of it. So maybe at some point I would probably reread it. It's not that long of a book. I can't remember how long the audio is, but the book is around 250 pages. So I liked it. I wish I had gotten the same experience, and I think I could have if I had waited. So I did something silly, basically. I should have just put the audio to the side and let myself experience the book the way I want to experience it. It's just that level of panic of, the year is ending, I want to make sure I read it, so let me just cram it in any way that I can. But I should have sacrificed getting it done this year, potentially, for doing it the right way. But, hindsight is 2020. I finished it and I liked it. I just think I could have gotten a better experience of it had I done it a little differently. After I finished Maurice, I picked up that library book that I mentioned, which is Holler by Latoya Watkins. And this is actually already overdue at the library, so I'm a terrible person. There was a hold on it, so I couldn't renew it. So I'm trying to cram it in really quickly before I return it to the library. I'm a terrible person. It's just what's happening. So this was on the long list for the National Book Award, did not make the short list, but I still really wanted to read it. It's a story collection. It sounded amazing. I'm only one story in, so I will talk about this next week when I do my Friday reads. I don't have a whole lot to say based on the first story, but so far so good. So we'll see how the rest of it goes. I'm going to try to cram that in quickly so I can return it to the library and not be a terrible person. I am probably going to do The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride in print once I'm done with that. I've been thinking about what I should do on audio, and I do actually have access to the audio of Witness by Jamel Brinkley, which is the book that I had mentioned earlier. I'm really looking forward to this, so I might try it on audio just to make sure I get it in, because this is another book that seems to be popping up in a lot of places for year-end best stuff, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I might do this on audio just to get it in. But I think I've learned my lesson. If I'm not enjoying the audio, I'll probably put it down and wait for the book in print. I also got The Talk by Darren Bell, which was one of Publishers Weekly's best books. I got it from my library, so this should be pretty easy to fit in because it's a graphic nonfiction. And I was able to renew my library book of library borrow of Twisted, The Tangled History of Black Hair Culture by Emma DeBerry, because I was looking for an Irish author of color, and she was very frequently recommended by people. So I need to cram both of those in, but I'm going to work on these first. That's the plan at any rate. We also just watched the movie Nyad, and I really liked it. It seems like critics are much more mixed on it, but I enjoyed it. It's on Netflix right now. Annette Bening and Jodie Foster are fantastic in it, and I'm looking forward to watching the new episode of Bake Off later today. So let me know what you've been up to, what you've been reading, what you've been watching, all of that stuff in the comment section down below. I'm sorry Teddy bailed pretty early in this video. He's asleep on the floor behind me, so I don't know if you can hear him snoring, but he is at this moment. But anyway, as always, I really appreciate your time. Let me know what you've been up to in the comment section down below, and I will be back until next time. Happy reading.